Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack the fascinating science behind how we accidentally discover news online. We'll be grounding our journey in a really rigorous 2010 study by researchers Yadamasuren and Erdelez. So let's dive right in and look at the highly unexpected ways we actually stay informed. Now, I want you to picture this for a second. How many times have you opened your laptop or unlocked your phone with a super specific, totally mundane task in mind? Like buying a pair of shoes, checking the weather, finding a recipe, and then half an hour later, you're completely derailed. You're suddenly deep into a bizarre article about a political scandal or some wild scientific breakthrough. Well, you're definitely not alone. It's a hugely relatable, everyday experience, and this little digital detour is exactly what we're decoding today. Here's our roadmap for the explainer. 1. The accidental news consumer. 2. The science of news encountering. 3. Where we stumble upon news. 4. The thrill of the chase. And 5. Why accidental news matters. Okay, Section 1, the accidental news consumer and navigating the information shift. Over the last couple of decades, we've obviously moved from intentionally reading the morning paper to just being constantly bombarded by information online. To really grasp this shift, we need a bit of baseline vocabulary. Researcher Tewksbury identified two distinct types of news consumers. On one side, we've got selectors. These are the folks who hunt for specific content defined by their own personal interests and needs. They know exactly what they want. On the flip side, we have browsers. These individuals basically surf news media to grab information on a whole wide range of topics, leaving themselves totally open to whatever happens to catch their eye. What's absolutely mind-blowing here is the sheer scale of this behavior. According to the data, 80% of online news users experience what we call serendipitous or accidental news consumption at least a few times a week. And get this, 59% say it happens every single day. So this proves that unintentional news reading isn't just some rare, quirky habit. It's literally a primary avenue for how modern citizens acquire their current affairs info. Moving into Section 2, the science of news encountering, studying the distraction. To figure out how this actually works, the Yadamasuren and Erdelez study took a really systematic approach. They interviewed 20 people in depth, even having them think aloud while browsing, to analyze their accidental news habits as they happened in real time. And out of this research, we get a fantastic, highly academic term for your everyday digital distractions: incidental information acquisition, or IIA. It simply means acquiring useful or interesting information while not consciously looking for it. So, the next time you get completely sidetracked online, you can just tell people you were deeply engaged in incidental information acquisition. It completely validates the whole experience. To understand the mechanics of how this happens, Erdelez created a model that maps out the psychological steps. First is noticing. You spot info relevant to a background interest while doing something else entirely. Second, stopping. You actually hit pause on your original task. Third, examining. You dive into that new information. Fourth, capturing. You bookmark or save it if it's worth keeping. And finally, returning. You go back to your original foreground task, like, finally buying those shoes. It's a very specific, fascinating cognitive dance between what you're doing and what you're interested in. Section 3. Where we stumble upon news. The environments of discovery. Where exactly are people running into these unexpected stories? The study pinpointed 5 main environments for this. You've got traditional news sites, your email inbox, alternative online media, and social networking sites. But check out that fourth one, non-internet sources. Sometimes this digital discovery cycle actually starts offline. You might hear a snippet on the radio or chat with a friend, and that sparks a background interest that essentially primes you for an incidental discovery once you sit down at a screen. Now, this brings up a wild paradox in the research. Some users actually intentionally put themselves in a position to be accidentally distracted. Sites like Dig, Yahoo, or the Drudge Report basically act as hubs for unexpected headlines. Readers reported visiting these crowd-surfing portals specifically for a gamble. They have zero idea what they're looking for, but they show up knowing they're going to stumble onto something completely off the wall. Section 4. The thrill of the chase. The psychology of distraction. How do people actually feel when they get sidetracked? Is it super annoying? Well, the consensus here is just striking. When they were asked how they felt about getting sidetracked by news, 19 out of the 20 respondents, that is a massive 95%, absolutely loved the distraction. Only one single person felt negatively about it, saying they felt too distracted. The vast majority were using words like lucky, happy, wonderful, fun. They genuinely enjoy that little dopamine hit of serendipity. To take that formal data and translate it into pure human emotion, just listen to respondent two's exact words. They said, "It's kind of the thrill of the chase, like you really discovered a treasure or something. It's kind of a thrill." People aren't just passively absorbing data, they're experiencing the sheer joy of finding something outrageous or bizarre that they didn't even know they wanted to find. Respondent 12 hit the nail on the head with this amazing, nostalgic comparison. They likened the modern online experience to opening up a physical encyclopedia. You'd open that heavy book looking for one specific thing, get completely distracted by a picture on the way, and suddenly realize you just spent 20 minutes reading about Spain. It just goes to show how our modern digital tangents perfectly mirror this old-school innate human joy of getting happily lost in information. But, it's not all fun and games. For some folks, this behavior serves a much deeper psychological purpose. Take respondent 14, for example. For them, incidental exposure is actually a defense mechanism. They actively avoid searching for mainstream news because it can just be overwhelmingly depressing. So, accidentally glancing at headlines while doing something else, that's literally the only tolerable way they can manage to stay informed about the world without totally burning out. Which brings us to Section 5. Why accidental news matters. The implications for media and society. What is the big picture here? Zooming out to the macro level, the impact is actually profound. By having news scattered all across the web, media organizations reach a way broader audience, snagging people who aren't your typical news junkies. Crucially, it exposes people to diverse and even opposing viewpoints that they would never ever actively search for on their own. This kind of serendipity promotes public discussion of big issues, and ultimately, the researchers argue, it fosters a much healthier democratic society by pushing information right past our usual echo chambers. So, wrapping up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative question to chew on. Think about the very last time you went down an online rabbit hole. Is your accidental news consumption bursting your filter bubble and making you a more well-rounded, better-informed citizen? Or is it really just distracting you from getting your actual goals accomplished? Keep an eye on your own incidental information acquisition this week. Thanks so much for joining me, and keep learning.